What's your story? Whether you're a client or an independent financial advisor, we know you face many important decisions that can affect your and your clients' long-term financial success. Welcome to the WIN Podcast, What's Important Now with Corey Heimensen, accredited investment fiduciary and president of Heimensen Wealth Advisors. In this podcast, Corey helps you identify your goals and objectives through financial education and comprehensive planning, while inspiring you to make better behavioral decisions in your personal finance. With a twist on pop culture and current events, join us as we explore growth and protection strategies for individuals, advisors, and their businesses. Come and discover what's important to you now.
Hello and welcome to the WIN Podcast with Corey Heimensen. Corey, what's going on?
I am fired up, Eric.
Yeah, I know you are. We were talking before the recording, and your energy is just absolutely coming through the microphone into my ears. You've got me jazzed. I'm excited. You've got a great topic today.
Well, and it's funny because I've done this type of business or this work, this industry for a long, long time. And every now and then I just think I come up with a great new light bulb type moment and I just get excited. So I'm here. I'm here today.
Well, I love light bulb moments because usually it's light that I've never turned on before. So I'm basking in the glow of your idea. Let's do this.
You bet.
All right. So tell the audience what we're talking about today.
So our title today is New Year, New Focus at Heimensen Wealth Advisors. And so as you listen to this podcast, we are early in January of 2023.
Yeah.
And so we want to just throw out some new exciting things we're trying to bring to the table.
Okay. And kind of how you termed it is that you're going to really highlight some value add things that you're doing for all of your clients moving forward.
Right. And just because it's January, I don't want to view this as a New Year's resolution, because this is the time of year where we all get flooded with the TV commercials for joining a gym and becoming somebody great. And we know how that ends.
Well, of course. Perfectly. Every time. Right?
So how about you? I mean, are you a New Year's resolution type guy or no?
Yes, to a certain extent. Now, you know my background. I've been a coach and consultant for a very, very long time. I am about not necessarily New Year's resolutions, but goal setting. Find that New Year's resolutions, as much as I've done them early on in my lifetime and sat there and shared with my family, we go around kind of talk about that or whatever. It's great until February. And then I have to kind of look back and say, now, what have I truly done? So I just use a different kind of format. I do goal setting throughout the year at different points, and not just New Year's resolution, because I find that when it comes to that time of year, it just doesn't stick with me. I've got to really sit down and quarterly make some goals, have an outline, and do all that where it's more formal. And it seems to work well. New Year's resolutions don't. And most of them are around exercise. And let's just be honest, Corey.
You're spot on. Most resolutions don't stick for a whole year, but I think most of them are related to either being healthier in some fashion or exercise, or they're about money, saving more money or paying down credit cards, whatever. But you're right. I think the goal setting, and we've talked about that before too, but that's important. But as you mentioned those words, it gives me a flashback. I know you always roll your eyes when we record these and I say, I've got a flashback or I have a tangent.
I love these flashbacks. No,
I've got one. So this goes back. This is probably about 3 years ago. Every year in August, I go and speak to the local school district, to all the school teachers at their opening meetings before the school year starts. Mm-hmm. And I went in there that day and I said to them, I'm going to set a goal. Before you see me next year, I'll come back and I'm going to report back. But I said, I'm going to exercise 3 times a week for the next 52 weeks. So what's that going to be? 250 times or something like that. They all laugh. So I come back the next year and I've got a index card in my pocket with a number written on it. Pull it out, show it to them, and I showed them an 88, that I had exercised 88 times that I had tracked in the year instead of 250. And they laughed. And then I said to them, I set a goal, but if I hadn't set that goal, I wouldn't have exercised 88 times. So I made some progress. This wasn't a complete epic disaster, even if you're all laughing at me. And I could see the light bulb come on for them. Like, oh, well, yeah, that kind of makes sense.
Hey, I'm going to improve your thought right there. Okay. Because if we went by your numbers, then it was definitely a little bit lower than you thought. But my math tells me that 3 times 52 is 156. Right?
So I'm the numbers guy. What did I say? 250?
Yeah. But here's the good news is that 88 is more than half of that 156.
Yeah.
You passed the halfway mark.
I was somebody.
I'm telling you. It's good news.
Oh.
But that's actually a really good point that you make. You know, that if you hadn't made the goal, you wouldn't even hit 88. Maybe one of the 8s would be on that card.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
I did 8 times. And I ate a bag of potato chips.
You set me straight. I think our work is done here today.
All right. Till next time, everybody, tune in. Oh, wait. All right.
No. But so, if New Year's resolutions only work 10% of the time, we don't want to go there. So I'm going to give you my word. I'm going to give everybody that's listening my word. We're going to throw out this value-added objective, and we're going to get after it, and we're going to do this.
Okay.
So there you go. And then we can hold me accountable for a year from this and see how I did, if I was accurate.
Okay. Deal. I'm the one holding you accountable. You know that, right? I'm just going to show up all day.
And so here it is. Essentially, whether we're meeting with a client face-to-face this next year, or a prospect, or if it's a phone meeting or a virtual meeting, whatever it is, I am going to look them in the eye, or my staff is, and we are going to ask one question. And that question is, what is the biggest problem or concern in your life, Mr. or Mrs. Client, or Mr. or Mrs. Prospect? And we're going to clarify that by saying, I'm not talking about investing numbers. I'm not talking about finance. I want to know what is concerning you at night. Mm-hmm. And this is going to shock people, and they're going to be confused. I can almost picture the deer in the headlights eyes on me. And the point is, success in this industry, or in finances or wealth, is not about plus and minuses or performance or beating that index on your statements and your accounts. It's so much bigger, so much bigger. And here's the real kicker. If you're working with a great professional, no matter what the industry, they should be able to hear your concern or your problem. And if they can't directly, immediately solve it, they should have steps that can improve your situation to hopefully further you down the path to solving it.
Absolutely. And knowing you, and as long as I've been working with you, you have a huge network of folks. So pretty much anything that they come up with, you're going to be able to point them in the right direction.
Yeah. And here's the huge light bulb moment. What's the name of the podcast? What's important now?
Absolutely.
Holy cats. This is episode 19. It took me 19 episodes to circle this all back and put it together. Damn.
But there was a lot of good podcasts before this.
Yeah. So I understand we keep hitting some of these points maybe time and again, or episode, and then another episode 5 times later. But you can tell the excitement and the passion I've got here today. And I'm going to try and bring this the whole year to every client because it's important.
Okay, I'm going to challenge you on this. Or not, I'm going to challenge you. We can delete this from the podcast. We can edit this right out if you don't want this in there. But I've worked with some families for a very long time in different aspects, not as an advisor like you. And I know that you have seen, a husband and wife not necessarily be on the same page. I would love for you to ask this question and just give them both like a little notebook, right? And just tell them, write down your answer. So they don't say it out loud. So that because if you ask my wife and I, sure, we could come up with an answer together. But if we were asked that question separately, we may come up with something different. And you can help them tackle 2 issues, the one that's important to the wife and the one that's important to the husband.
That's brilliant. That is really good, because you're right. Whenever you sit down with 2 people, I think generally there's going to be one of them that maybe drives the conversation a little bit more.
Absolutely.
And the other one's going to be a little more soft-spoken or feel like they shouldn't say or ask things. Tangent number 2 from Corey. Here we go. Investment companies in this industry are always trying to come up with little tools that they can give advisors like us to improve client experiences. And there was a company years ago that gave me, it was essentially like a deck of cards. Maybe we've talked about this before too. I don't know, but it'd have a picture of a boat or grandkids or whatever. And the goal was to give these decks of cards to the clients and have them, shuffle them without the spouse seeing, and then lay them out to see which one was the most important. So kind of the same sort of exercise, but a lot of those were really not related to problems, I don't think. They were more like goals. And so this today, my mind is really going to, boy, let's solve for what scares you or worries you. And we see this too, as people get older, those worries change. And sometimes people that are in their 80s or older, they might worry about things that they really don't need to worry about. But by all means, let's try and comfort those people.
Well, we all live in our own moment, in our own bubble. And so having somebody look from the outside is always beneficial. So taking your example, you've got somebody in their 80s who's like, I'm really scared of running out of money, or I'm worried about running out of money. And you're on the outside looking in going, I'm looking at everything. Let's go through the numbers. Unless you live to 187, you're going to be fine, right? Giving them that freedom. You've told me this before, that you've done this before, that you've actually had to tell clients, hey, look, you should probably take a vacation. You should probably treat yourself a little better than you are right now, because you have the funds. You're not going to run out, and you could travel and enjoy family more, or whatever the case may be.
Perfect example. This is about a month ago. I'm talking to a client, and she's complaining. She had a CD at her local bank and less interest on it than the postage stamp that the statement had to mail it to her. That's a little bit of exaggeration, but she says, they just aren't paying me for this money at the bank. And I reminded her that, I said, you have 2 kids and they're married and they have grandkids. I said, you guys went to Disney World, right? Like 8-10 years ago? And she says, yeah, it was wonderful. It was magical. I said, why don't you do it again? And she looked at me and she says, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to cash in that account. When it matures, I'm going to take all of them to Florida. And she had the biggest grin on her face. And the reason I said it was not to just spend money and boost up the economy of Florida. It was because it was money she's not going to need.
Yeah.
So, and we've said that before too. It's experiences. Mm-hmm. Life is about experiences, is what the real values are. It's not your pile of greenbacks that lay in a box when you're, checking out of this existence.
Okay. So let me ask you this. What about clients that bring up health concerns? Right. My biggest concern right now, Corey, is my health. I've got these issues. I've seen a doctor. He's going to refer me to a specialist. So that's what's on my mind right now.
Yeah. I think you hit my first answer right there. Seek out the professionals that can assess the situation and hopefully improve it.
Yeah.
Then my planning hat goes to, we have 2 things in the world that we can't avoid, right? Death and taxes. Mm-hmm. And so let's be planned, let's have documents in place, whether that's power of attorney, living will, trusts to avoid probate. I mean, a lot of those tools then come to my mind, that all of those are conversations, or maybe it's gifting, and, but again, it comes back to making somebody comfortable, that they appreciate and feel good about the plan. And all of those things I just talked about, we're not talking about numbers on statements.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they're solving for what's the most urgent or important thing I need to talk about today.
Yeah, and it's not that you can, refer them to a specialist that's going to give them a cure, right? It's what you're able to do is you're able to say, okay, let's talk this through. What are the pain points of that specific situation? If it is their health, well, I don't know what's going to happen. So the unknown, that's always scary. But the reassurance that you're able to give because of the planning that you've done, that at least won't keep them up at night. There's nothing you can do about the tests that their doctor is going to give them. Those are going to come when they're going to come. However, knowing that their family is going to be okay, knowing that their spouse is going to be okay. In my lifetime, Corey, I feel like I'm laying on a therapist's couch right now. In my lifetime, the thing that's kept me awake the most at night has always been, number one, money issues, especially when I was younger and broke and had a brand new family. And then the second one was my children, right? Are they okay? How are they doing in school? Are they making friends? Are they doing the right thing, making good choices? Those are the 2 things in that order that kept me up the most in my current lifetime. And now money is less of an issue. My children are still always on my mind, but I don't have as many worries because they're adult children now. So we go through these phases, and I love the fact that you're with these families through all these phases, and that you've watched their children grow up. You've watched their children have children, and so your clients have grandchildren. you're alongside step by step.
Exactly. And now you're tangent 3. How many tangents we got today? But I don't know if this is really a tangent because it really ties into what you just said. Not that long ago, I was reading a book. It was called The Power of Habit. A lot of it was, to break a habit, you got to have repetition. You got to have a reward of sorts. Mm-hmm. But there was a quote in there. I've got it here somewhere. And this was from an organizational psychologist. His name was Carl Weick. And it's a little wordy, so we're gonna dumb it down in Corey language after I read this. But he said, small wins do not combine in a neat, linear, serial form, with each step being a demonstrable step closer to some predetermined goal. So now my interpretation of that, for anybody that still stayed on to the podcast, is, small little wins. They're not going to be lined up in order and you can connect the dots and just see the whole trail to success land. But what really comes down is if you look back in life, if we did this experiment right now, we look back in life, we could probably identify in each of our lives some small little things that were a win. And if you piece these things together, eventually you can see where maybe invisible things that you didn't think about or weren't aware of suddenly popped up. But you know what? All these little wins came together and got you to a better place. Mm-hmm. And that's really kind of what we're talking about today. Whether you're posing these problem questions on your kids growing up or friends or healthcare or whatever it is, if you think about solving little things or putting out this little fire and putting out that little fire, and eventually you've got your stuff under control. And I think you get an inner peace that ties into success, whatever success is defined as for people.
Yeah. So let's go back to the beginning of this podcast, really. I'm curious, what brought on this initiative? What made you think about this as something that you really wanted to initiate in 2023?
I am never content because I care too darn much about clients. You know what I mean? I am so passionate about this industry that I want to raise the bar each and every day, essentially. But, that's too frequently that you have to go back to an initiative of, hey, I like this idea of it's a new year, and I know people think about resolutions, but they're going to come and go. This is something that I can put my hat on, hang it out here for the world to hear today, and by all means, my team and I are going to put in every last minute of effort we can to provide more value to clients, because there's lots of advisors in the country, and again, not everybody has to come and see me and work with my team. But professionals, no matter what the industry, should bring value. And if I can add one more valuable piece to my clients' repertoire in 2023, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Well, I think that it goes back to, if you're not continually trying to not necessarily reinvent yourself, but again, like you said, add something of value to the clients that you currently work with. If you're stagnant and not doing anything, it's very easy for them to find somebody else that will, right? And I think I've shared with you that I had an advisor, my very first advisor we had some money with. I heard from them once a year. It was like, check it in. How are you doing? Doing great. Okay, talk to you next year. There was nothing else. And am I with that advisor today, Corey? No.
I know the answer. I'm guessing the answer.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, it's not that you have to bring something else to your clients or to the audience every time, but if you can, why not? If this one question is going to change one person's mind or one person's thought process on where they're at and what they're doing, you've succeeded, period.
Exactly. And that's what this is about. It's no different. Now I'm thinking about my wife when we moved into our house, which was originally built in 1972, and it had pink, somewhat shaggy type carpet throughout the house. And she says to me, we got to replace all this carpet. I said, well, I don't know why. It looks like it's pretty good shape, and what about the paneling,
Mm-hmm.
and she opened my eyes. She's like, you got to move with the times and you got to improve things over time. You can't just live in the past. Status quo is not always acceptable.
Yeah. No, you got a smart wife.
Yeah, she's all right. Edit team. No,
We're
no,
leaving
she's
that
great.
in edit team.
I think I'm more excited now as we wrap up this podcast than I was when we started it. But, why wouldn't, and I've seen this quote, or I've said this before in other podcasts, why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we raise the bar and try and work harder?
Well, okay, this is why I love working with you, man. Because what you've made me think about is that I'm actually going to ask this question. I'm not going to, audiences listening to this in January, we're recording it before that. I'm not going to wait till January. I'm going to ask my kids this exact question. What is your biggest concern right now? What is the one thing that's on your mind the most that maybe keeps you up at night, or the biggest problem or concern in your life? If you want to share that with me, right? What can I do to help you with that? I don't ask my kids that question. They're adults. Hey son, how's this going? How's that going? He's doing some work on his house. Hey, buddy, I'm going to come over later and we can tackle that problem or whatever. But I've never thought to ask him, well, what's the biggest concern in your life? Is there something that you're thinking about right now or trying to figure out that he hasn't voiced to me, or that my daughter hasn't voiced to me? So thank you. This is great.
Yeah, great. No, that's awesome. And I get it. Just what you're saying. Everybody in the world is busy. Mm-hmm. And so it's easy to stay in your own little world, and maybe you forget to ask that question of others. And maybe they don't even want to answer it for you, but if you get them thinking about it, maybe that's even enough of a push for them to go solve or solidify whatever they're trying to solidify.
Yeah. Well, if you're connected with Corey in any way, and whether if you're a client and you're listening to this podcast and you haven't had a meeting yet where Corey's asked you this question, it's coming, right? So start thinking about it. And if you don't want to wait till your meeting, I'm sure, Corey, you wouldn't mind taking an email and saying, hey, here's my biggest concern. When can we talk about this? I know that you've got a team supporting you. There's lots of folks that are there to help. And if you're not a client, I would encourage you to reach out to Corey and just have a conversation to see what he does for real. I mean, the podcast gives you just a brief glimpse of what he does. But Corey, you do so much more.
Absolutely. I appreciate those comments, and they are all absolutely on point. We are here to assist. We're here to have conversations, and we like talking to people.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, how do they talk to you? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Let's go with our phone number.
Okay.
800-657-4316.
Fantastic. Corey, again, great idea. Great stuff, man. I'm so excited. Like you said, I'm more jazzed now after the podcast than even before when I was thinking about this idea.
That's awesome. Maybe we should both go join a gym and, really get after that healthcare stuff too.
Let's not push it.
Okay, I agree.
Okay. All right. Corey, again, thank you so much for your time today.
Right on. Thank you, Eric.
You bet. And our last thank you always goes to you, the listening audience. Thank you for tuning in and listening to the WIN podcast. And if you're new to the podcast, just remember, WIN stands for What's Important Now. And that's what Corey and his team are tackling. So thank you again for listening to the WIN podcast with Corey Heimensen. And if you've not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Corey comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. And we humbly ask that you share this podcast, rate it, and leave a review, as this actually will help others find the show. Again, thank you so much for listening today. For everyone at Heimensen Wealth Advisors, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the WIN podcast. What's important now? The show that helps you achieve your financial dreams. To ask questions about topics covered during the show or get a copy of Stop Doing Dumb Things with Your Money by Corey Heimensen, visit www.heimensenwealth.com or give us a call at 712-472-3867. Don't forget to click the follow button below to be notified when new episodes become available. Securities offered through Securities America Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered through Securities America Advisors Inc. Heimensen Wealth Advisors and Securities America are separate entities.